good afternoon, everyone. A special welcome to my co-host, Shanaz. And as you can tell, if you can't tell, the wonders of technology is allowing me to be mobile while I open up the session. Um, yes, welcome to our event, My Life, My Business. Wish I was here. And just as a reminder, if you're tuning in for the first time, this is really about, owing yourself the gift of living your life fully engaged. And what we talk about is really all the little things that you could apply in your life, in your business, in any type of organization that you find yourself, and live this kind of a life. So, without further ado, today Shanaz is going to share with us, challenge us, and enlighten us to understand that we don't have to be victim of our environment. We don't have to be victim of our procrastinations even. So, thank you very much for listening, and over to you, Shanaz.
Hi, thank you, Jacques. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. So I've been busy with the book by Dr. Caroline Leaf called Switch on Your Brain. And it's all about helping you to change your thoughts, becoming aware of your thoughts so that you can achieve the life that you want to live. And the book is also some of her work. She is a communications pathologist and studies neuroscience. And her work is also, she's a Christian. Her work is also being inspired by a lot of scriptures and how God has created our brains. And one of the things that always I need to remind myself is that she says that our life is and our life circumstances is the result of our thought patterns. So is a result of our thought world. So your current life experience and circumstances is the result of your thought life, and that can be both positive or negative depending on how you interpret the circumstances of your life. And she has a 5-step process which she calls detoxifying. She helps us to detoxify the our brain. In other words, she talks about we need to become aware of our thoughts and how we can change our toxic thoughts, which interestingly actually takes up, as she calls it, it takes up property space in our brain. And if we are wanting to become more positive and focus on the good things, like the Bible says, then we first need to get hold of and process the toxic thoughts. We need to get rid of the toxic thoughts in our brain, because that or in our thoughts, because that will actually prevent us from developing long standing positive thoughts. So, as I said, her process is there are 5 steps, and I'm going to be covering the steps over the next couple of weeks. And the first step that she talks about is she calls it gather. And the whole idea with gather is how we gather information from our external environment and our internal environment. So our external environment would be, for example, you are sitting and you are listening to a piece of music, or you are sitting and listening to the trees, and the wind blow outside, the cars driving past. That would be your external environment. And your internal environment would be some of the thoughts that are going on in your head. And so that's the first step. And the whole purpose then of that first step is to help us become aware of the actual thoughts that are going through our head at the time. And it is amazing that what I've actually discovered over the past couple of days, I am currently, it's a this detoxifying process is a 21-day is a 21-day sort of step process, or 21 days. It takes 21 days, and I'm repeating step 1 to step 5 in these 21 days. And so currently I am on day 13, and some very interesting things have been happening in terms of what I've been thinking of. I've become a lot more aware of the thoughts that dominate me that I'm actually haven't been aware of. And so literally what she says, then the actual purpose then is to bring those thoughts into consciousness, because for some of us we have a lot of thoughts that we're not aware of. We are not conscious that we have negative thoughts. And so the whole idea then of the first step is to bring your non-conscious thoughts into consciousness, so become more aware of it. And I can tell you that it's definitely I've become aware of a few thoughts that I didn't think that I had, but I do have. And so I'm just going to, then she refers us to a chapter in the book called Gather. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you do in this step, and then my experience with this step. So there are questions that come with each step that you need to ask yourself. And the purpose of the questions in this particular step called Gather is about becoming aware of what you are thinking about and what you are experiencing. And the first one is around what you're experiencing through your five senses. So she says that, that when you are sitting one side, or if you're wanting to do this kind of work on yourself and become aware of what you're actually thinking, you do need to have a few minutes. This particular process, step 1 to step 5, actually takes 7 minutes, and she suggests taking 2 minutes with the step. I have found it a lot more than 2 minutes. I think it takes me a while to settle down in my thoughts and become aware of my environment. So I do tend to take longer, and I suspect that for if you are not a meditation expert, then it will take you longer. And so the questions that she asks are, what are you experiencing through your five senses as you're reading this? And describe it in as much detail as possible. And she said it's a simple exercise to help you become aware of what is coming into your mind. And she says, so it's really about awareness. And she says that the simple awareness can be developed to where you learn not to let anything go through your thoughts sort of unchecked. What I have found in this process is that I'm very stimulated by sound, and so I'm often noticing the sounds around me. And I'm actually, when I started every day, when I've you've got to write in a journal as well, because step three is step 3 is actually writing. And so when you actually go and write, you actually become aware of what you've been thinking. And when I review the things that I've written, is that I think that I get distracted actually by my sound. I'm always very aware of the sounds around me. And so I've got a lot of that, but it does actually help me to tune out other distractions. And so found is that is definitely an important step to kind of think about what you are hearing, what you are seeing, what you are feeling, or even tasting. And as I said, I seem to tend to focus on the sound, which is kind of made me curious that maybe I do get distracted by sound very easily, and that's something to kind of look out for. So what she says is that this all this information is coming to us at the same time, and the whole point of this is just to start to train your thought muscles, and I guess get you into knowing how to become aware of your thoughts. Because when you become aware of your thoughts, you can actually stop the negative ones. But now the negative ones, I discovered, does take deeper thinking. And she actually does this very well, as she explains to you, how do I go to the next level? So you almost want to get beyond just hearing the sounds. You also want to get to understanding what thoughts are coming into my mind when I'm hearing these sounds. And that's what she says, while you are thinking about what you're experiencing on the outside, your external environment, what is going on in your internal environment, your thoughts. And she says, and focus on how many thoughts there are. And so I actually discovered that I have a lot of the thoughts. So I experienced my external environment, the outside sounds, but I actually discovered that I have a lot of thoughts going on in my head at that time. And what she wants you to do, once you have a thought, like, that's possibly mulling around in your head all the time, or that appears to be most prominent, she asks you to focus on that thought. The interesting thing is that she actually also says in this step, that in terms of awareness, and because she's a Christian, she says that the Holy Spirit will lead you into all truth. So in other words, what thought should you be focusing on? And in this process, I discovered that some of the thoughts that I have, because I have several thoughts, a lot of my thoughts are about my present and immediate situation. So that could be around work, that could be around what's going on in my family. For example, I am busy with my parents' estate. I am needing to change a car. So, a lot of the things that I'm focusing on tend to be about those issues. What is really interesting then is that the next step that she wants us to do. So, so initially that was kind of fine. Like, I was aware, okay, I'm thinking a lot about work. Work has been hectic a bit, and stuff going on with my family, and the estate, etc, etc. The other question that she asks is, which then started me thinking, she says, can you determine the attitude of the thoughts that are currently in your mind and focus on the feelings that are being generated by this thought? And she says, which I just, I didn't think about it, and it really struck me. She says that attitude is a state of mind, so a thought plus its attached emotions, and it influences what you say and you do. So when you think of your attitude, it's actually a thought plus the emotion you associate with it. And that, of course, started to get me going. And she wants you kind of to describe, how does this thought feel in your mind, feel in your body? And this is where I started to notice my tense shoulders. I noticed a little bit of heaviness. I was like hunched over, and I actually started to realize that these situations are actually causing me to be a little bit anxious, right? And so the next step then is to actually explore this further. And what she then asks us is that, do you feel, when you think of these thoughts, do you feel in your conscious mind? So now I'm thinking about my parents' estate. I'm thinking about my parents passed on. I'm thinking about the car and the work stuff that's going on. And she asks us, to kind of think about this. And what I can tell you is that some of it was actually was unexpected thoughts about things that make me anxious. It was a sadness also about my parents. So it really started to kind of shift things for me. in that way, because I realized that I do think about things that stress me as a as someone who works with people. Self-care and managing your stress is kind of part of what we do. So I have a level of awareness around this, but I think that I wasn't aware how I possibly don't process it consistently, and that these things possibly do kind of get buried, and I look over and I pretend that things are fine, when I look at my thought patterns, then maybe it's not, so maybe I haven't dealt with it, and maybe it's causing me more anxiety and stress than what I actually think it does. And so this was kind of all being revealed in in the step. And I have to tell you, I was really annoyed at the step, because I'm like, I want to get to the good stuff where I can change my behavior. And and that was also something that I'd picked up about myself. I tend to get frustrated and a little bit annoyed. I want results, and this is taking too slow. And but I actually realize how much that also says about my thought patterns. Anyway, so the one question that I was slightly annoyed about that she asked, because initially I think this doesn't apply to me. Why is she asking this question? And the question that she asks is, do you feel like a victim or a victor over what is swarming through your mind at the moment from the external and internal signals? And my immediate reaction is, but I'm not a victim. I don't think of myself like as a victim. And what she starts to ask then also is, do you know how do you know that you're able to accept or reject thoughts flowing through your mind, right? So firstly, I have to, as I said, I initially thought to myself, but I'm not a victim. Like, this question doesn't apply to me. However, because the step asks you, it's another step, it's step 2, which is called focused reflection. I started thinking very deeply about, do I think of myself as a victim or not? And what I realized, surprise, surprise, when I started writing in, which is the third or the fourth step, I realized that there were certain situations where I do feel that I was the victim, or I respond like I am the victim of the situation. I respond like I am the victim of circumstances. And that was such an aha moment for me, because I didn't think that I was. And so I'll give you an example of that. So what I think one of the situations was around my the sporting ability, or not having a sporting ability. And so I have always felt that so I guess, in a sense, I felt that I was a victim of my mother's authoritarian upbringing. And I also, eventually, when I started to understand, I also felt that I could have possibly felt that I was a victim of the whole school sports activity thing. Because what was, when I started thinking about the memories that were coming up regarding sports, and regarding my parents, and my initial idea of why I wanted to do this was actually, I wanted to become more healthier and change some of the toxic thinking around physical activity, and I want to run a 10K, etc. And I then discovered that some of my experiences at primary school and at high school in doing physical education and athletics actually left me feeling like I was I think I wasn't very sporty. I was more academic. I was academic, and focused on that. And I realized that the sporting activities left me feeling ashamed and humiliated. And I think that that is the reason why I struggle with sporting activities, because I don't perceive myself as an athlete. And maybe that could be around I need to be good at things, or it could be around this idea that I feel like there's a part of me that felt that I am this victim of my school sporting activities. And that was really interesting because that helped me start to change and think, but I'm not a victim. I wasn't a victim. But it was my perceptions and my feelings that I associate with those activities. And how do I need to change it now? And I realized then that the shame and the humiliation that I experienced, the memories. So this is what um, um, gathering this information, and what the step actually does is it actually stirs up and triggers memories. And this is it's the internal information. And when the memories are stirred up, this is an opportunity then to actually form new memories. And part of this step then is to actually, she asks the question, and actually says that you do not have to be dominated by your emotions or your perceptual library. So these perceptions that I have built up or have around not being an athlete or sporting activities, I don't have to be dominated by them. And then she also talks then about, we can ask ourselves whether we want this to be part of us or not. What I then realized also was the feelings of humiliation and shame regarding sporting activities was, as I said, I was being dominated by those emotions. And on this journey, I have realized that I do tend to become dominated by my emotions, whether that's shame or humiliation or fear or anxiety, anger, and frustration. As I said, I wanted to get to the results part, and I didn't want to stay long in the step. I wanted to move where I can change my behavior, and that's also a manifestation of my frustration. But the thing that the gather step does is that it does trigger some of these memories. And the amazing thing about the book then, and about her work, is that as soon as it starts to trigger other thoughts, deeper memory or memories, you can actually shift those memories. And you can, um she asked, do you want to change that? And actually, what she explains in her book is that when we access these memories and these thoughts, because our brains are have this ability that they call neuroplasticity. It means that we can change those thoughts, we can change the memories. So I could, for example, instead of being I that number one, I don't have to be dominated by those feelings of shame and humiliation around sporting activities, or fear and anxiety, through insecurity, etc. I'm able to change that and focus on success, focus on I'm an adult now, and there have been times that I've been an athlete where I've taken part in sports and it's been very successful. And I started to realize that how amazing is this, that I can actually start to change my thoughts and I can start to change my memories. And once you actually start to do that, you will start to think differently about the activity. And so I have discovered that even though I get really frustrated with this step, it has started to really reveal a few things about myself that I didn't know. And some of those things, as I said, is around that I do tend to get swept up and make decisions without realizing it, make decisions based on my emotions, and that what those emotions are actually attached to thoughts, and those attitudes that I was speaking about. And what I've become aware of, for example, is that one of the conclusions that I've come to just about this step is that I really struggle, or I don't think I was necessarily taught explicitly to regulate my emotions. And I think that actually at school we are not taught, young people are not taught how to regulate emotions such as stress, anxiety, fear, etc. So it's really interesting that this is what we base our decisions on, yet we are not taught how to manage it. And so, what I'm aware of the time, and so what I just kind of then want to end off with is that she says that sensory information, we need to be aware that it flows into our brain through our five senses, and that existing memories in the non conscious are therefore activated. And these memories can move from the non conscious to the conscious mind. And, and these are how our attitudes are invoked, or how attitudes are created. So, in other words, if there is a particular attitude of yours that you are struggling with and you want to change, it is actually connected to some memories, and those memories are connected to some feelings. And what she says is that when we start to activate this at this step, we actually can shift those memories, and it can move and change. And this is the start of how we actually start to work and change our toxic thoughts. And I'm going to end there, and just kind of say that it's been actually quite revealing. I think that if I had to be a coach, well, in a sense I am, and I needed to teach this to others, I definitely tweak it here and there because it can become quite technical. And as I said, I am realizing that the 7 minutes that she says this whole 5 step process should take every day actually does require longer time. But I'm absolutely seeing and experiencing some of the things that she talks about in the book. And I look forward to sharing more of that the next step when I come back. So that's me, and just kind of want to say that once you just focus a little deeper than your current thoughts, when you access those thoughts, immediately you can start to work on changing it. And I just think that that's such good news for us. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. I just want to thank you for using yourself as a case study, and how you delivering this with so much transparency, frankness, and the sense of humor, because there's a lot to learn. And when you grasp hold of what it is you're saying, when you apply yourself during this gather stage, and it is you've got to make the time to really become aware of what you are thinking and sifting through the things that, as you say, drive an attitude that you don't want. You got to isolate what it is you're believing in that moment. But what you made very clear is that we hold on to things because of the emotions attached on it. So, there's all kinds of opportunities here to perhaps, rationally decide that whatever you've become victim of is to use that moment and say, okay, yes, not just to look at it differently. Sometimes I think the process requires you to, if you want to move on from it and change your perspective. It sounds to me that, and I don't know if you're going to be dealing with this in the. It sounds to me there's actually where there's strong emotion involved with a particular memory that you've had, and it maybe requires from you that you need to let move on. But then that sounds to me when I'm listening to you, how willing are you then going to be to forgive if it's linked to the people that did this to you in some way, shape, or form, or a situation that was created caused something. How willing are you to actually forgive and to move on, and to be able then to change that which is no longer serving you in the different circumstances. So yeah, those are my thoughts for now that is being triggered, Shanaz, and thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you. And yes, you are correct. I'll just kind of end up there that what I've discovered is that we assume, even for us as professionals working with people, I think that I assume that I'm processing situations and circumstances and emotions in my life. But what I've discovered is that maybe I'm not doing it as effectively and consistently as I should, and that it does take the time, as you said. And this is an amazing opportunity as well to kind of change some of the things we would like to change, as you said, that doesn't serve us.
Wonderful. All right, I look forward to the next installment, and thank you very much. As usual, it's really thought provoking, but more than that, it needs to inspire us to take action and change uh, how we engage with our lives. So, yeah, until next week, then, have a fantastic week. Live your life consciously. That's what I can inspire you to do. Thank you,
Thank
Shana.
you. Bye.
Bye.